A faceless being. Nameless, unseen, except for the carnage it left behind. Known only by cuts so impossibly clean they turned the stomach, and by the spinning blood symbol left on every victim. That was a story from the last century. No one believed it was still real. Until the first bodies began to appear again. And this is the story of the people who had no choice but to face it, whether they wanted to or not. The town of Ridgewell isn't on any important road. It's barely a dot on the map, just over 6,000 souls, a handful of cattle ranches, one crumbling high school, and a single main street that cuts through town like an afterthought, as if to remind the world the place still exists. But that very isolation turned Ridgewell into a vault of strange tales whispered over whiskey in winter bars. Sarah Monroe was born and raised here. A freelance reporter who once tried to make it in Seattle, failed, and came home to the quiet disappointment of her family. The only thing that kept her from leaving again was a stubborn, smoldering love for this unforgiving land, and perhaps the secret hope that one day she could prove she wasn't a lost cause. That winter, Ridgewell was so cold that a few minutes outside turned your breath to frost on your scarf. Sarah sat by the window of her old house, trying, and failing, to write a piece on ranch life, when her phone buzzed. Sheriff Briggs's voice came through, hoarse with exhaustion. "Sarah, you want a big story? North Woods. Right now. Something's happened." From his tone alone she knew it wasn't an accident. The North Woods were usually silent. That day they were crawling with police. A strip of forest cordoned off, cruiser lights strobing through the swaying snowstorm. Sarah stepped out, her boots sank ankle-deep. What she saw froze her for several seconds. In the middle of a small clearing lay the body of a young man, maybe 30. The worst of it, a single diagonal cut from left shoulder to right hip, so clean it looked as though a giant axe had fallen once and only once. No long smears of blood, just a patch of crimson snow around the corpse, the slash executed instantly, precisely, surgically. Right beside the body, a circle drawn in blood, the lines shaky but deliberate, 3 sharp diagonal slashes inside it like an arcane sigil. Sarah shivered. She had seen terrible things while covering crime, but never anything like this. Sheriff Briggs walked up and sighed. "Looks like, he's back." Sarah swallowed hard. "You mean the Ridgewell executioner? That's just a legend." Briggs stared straight at her, eyes ice-cold. "We thought so too." 3 days after the murder, the snow still hadn't stopped. Sarah was called to the station. Briggs dropped a thick folder on the desk. Cases from 1957 to 1972. Every victim killed with one cut. Every one marked with that symbol. And we never caught him. Sarah flipped through the faded photographs. Every wound was identical, impossibly smooth, no tearing of flesh, no signs of struggle. "It's like an executioner," she whispered. "Exactly. The town calls him the Ridgewell executioner. Some say ghost. Some say a mad old lumberjack. Nobody knows." Briggs slid out another photo, yellowed with age, a sad-eyed boy of about 12 standing in front of a log house. This boy vanished in 1972. Son of a suspect we questioned but could never charge. Before he disappeared, the kid said he saw his father walking with a strange man, long cloak, face completely hidden. "You think it's connected?" Briggs looked grim. "We think the boy saw the executioner. And now he's back." Trying to understand, Sarah tracked down the victims' old families. Most had moved away or passed on. Only one remained, Martha, daughter of the 1963 victim. Her house sat alone in a valley. When Sarah knocked, the old woman opened the door trembling, eyes wide with dread. "The executioner, he's back, isn't he?" she asked before Sarah could speak. "How did you?" "I knew the moment the snow changed color. He always returns in winter. He likes the cold. Likes the silence before the blade falls." Sarah felt ice crawl up her spine. What do you know about the faceless man? Martha set an old wooden box on the table with shaking hands. Inside was a charcoal sketch, a towering figure in a sweeping black cloak, wearing a silver mask with no eye holes, only a thin crooked line for a mouth. He visited houses one by one. He didn't kill at random. He chooses. Anyone who has done evil, he finds them. No one escapes. But why? Martha stared out at the falling snow. Because he is no longer human. He has only his duty, and his blade. The news of the first killing hadn't even settled when Ridgewell shook again. A second body was found beside the frozen river, a woman, 40-ish, a schoolteacher. This time not one cut, but two, heavy with meaning, as if sending a message. The blood symbol was there again, sharper now, almost carved into the ice. Sarah stood at the scene, heart cold. An officer approached. Know what's strangest? No footprints around the body. None. That's impossible. Snow's only been falling 3 hours. Anyone walking here would leave tracks. But there's nothing. Like the body was set down from above. Sarah glanced up at the dense canopy. No way a helicopter could lower someone here. She thought again of the silver mask. Of the faceless man. The deeper Sarah dug into the victims' lives, the more stunned she became. Both were tied to a secret land corruption scandal more than 20 years earlier, when the old town government forcibly seized native land. Every high-ranking official from that era was either dead or long gone from Ridgewell. Those records had been buried deep. Only after scouring the town library and county archives did she piece together fragments. The more she found, the heavier the dread became. He's not killing randomly, she whispered, hands trembling over the files. He's enforcing a justice the law never touched. A sudden thought struck her. The Ridgewell executioner was no demon. He was human, or had been. And he was avenging the wronged dead. Snow fell thicker every day. Rumors swept the town. Doors were locked by dusk, children kept inside, the church held prayer services every night. An invisible hand seemed to tighten around Ridgewell's throat. Sarah fought to stay rational, but the closer she got to the case, the more she felt watched. At night she heard crunching outside the house. Wind? Or footsteps in the snow? One afternoon, leaving the pharmacy, she saw a tall black figure standing motionless at the end of the street, swallowed by swirling snow. Long cloak. Just like the sketch. Sarah froze. A blink later, the figure was gone. Late one night Briggs called. You need to come down here. Someone left this on the station steps. A tattered notebook. Inside, scrawled in black ink, some pages water-stained. He is coming for us. Can't run. He knows. The boy chose him. That campfire, we created the monster ourselves. Sarah went cold. Who wrote this? Briggs drew a long breath. One of the old deputies. He confessed to helping cover up the land seizures. Wrote this right before he killed himself. Everything clicked, the executioner wasn't merely murdering. He was cleansing. Everyone connected was dying, one by one. At 3 in the morning the phone ripped her from sleep. Briggs shouting. Sarah. East Woods, now. We see him. She raced through the night. When she arrived, floodlights ringed the clearing. An officer, shaking. He's, right there. Not moving. 100 yards out. Sarah looked. In the middle of the snowy expanse, through the howling wind, stood a tall figure in a black cloak, rigid as a gravestone. Her heart hammered. Briggs's voice boomed through the bullhorn. Drop the weapon. Hands in the air. The figure did not move. Then, slowly, he turned his head. The silver mask caught the lights, no eyes, no nose, only that thin, crooked smile. In the space of a heartbeat he vanished, dissolving into mist. Not running. Not leaping. Simply gone. Half the police force quit by morning. Sarah was different. She had to understand. She returned to the notebook. The last page made her knees buckle. The child from that year is the executioner. Not a victim. Not a witness. Him. The boy who vanished in 1972 hadn't been taken. He had been chosen, or had chosen, to become what stood before them now. A being that wore the shape of a man but outlived a human life. That same night an anonymous email arrived. If you want the truth about 1972, come to the abandoned church at the end of the forest. She took her camera and a flashlight and went alone. The old church stood half collapsed, choked with moss. When she pushed the door open, the stench of rot hit her. On the pulpit someone had left a wooden box. Inside, a cracked silver mask, older than the one she knew. A small rusted axe, still razor-sharp. An old film reel and a dusty projector. Hands shaking, she started the projector. Images flickered, 1972. A group of men had tied a native man to a post inside the church, beating him while forcing his young son to watch. The boy screamed. One of the men pressed an axe into the child's hands. Finish your father, or we do it and then kill you. The film stuttered. The boy did not swing. A cloaked stranger stepped into frame, took the axe from the boy's hands, and the reel snapped. Only the sounds remained, men fleeing in terror, and a voice echoing through the crackling film. You will take my place and finish justice. You shouldn't have come alone. The voice behind her spun Sarah around. The black figure stood in the doorway. Cloak fluttering. Mask glinting in moonlight. She stood frozen, hands trembling but eyes locked on him. You're the boy from that year. He was silent for a long moment. Then he removed the mask. Sarah's breath caught. The face beneath was not entirely human, skin death pale, features blurred as if erased by time. Eyes with no whites, only deep darkness. I was the child once, he said, voice echoing from the bottom of a well. But humanity is too weak to bear the weight of justice. So I was given power. For what? To return what was stolen. To end what the law refuses to touch. But you've murdered people. The ones alive now aren't the ones who did it. They inherit the guilt. They keep stepping on others' pain. Justice has no expiration date. Sarah shook. Then why follow me? You seek the truth. You do not fear it. This town will need someone like you when my work is done. She stepped back, understanding what was coming. You're leaving Ridgewell. When the last name on the list has paid. Only one remains. Who? He turned away. You already know. And she did. The final name in the old land seizure files was Sheriff Briggs. Sarah bolted from the church, slipping on snow. She called Briggs, no answer. Called the station, silence. Above, the snow whipped into a whiteout. She drove like a madwoman through the trees. When she reached the sheriff's office, the door hung open. Lights flickered. The building was unnaturally quiet, as if every sound had been sucked out. Briggs, she screamed. A crash from the hallway. She ran in and found him on the floor, soaked in blood but still breathing. He came, Briggs gasped. He's not a demon. He's justice twisted. I deserved this long ago. No. Briggs, listen. You can still make it right, you have to live. The black figure appeared at the end of the hall. Silver mask reflecting the lights. Sarah threw herself between them. If you kill him, you are no longer justice, she shouted. You'll just be a murderer, nothing more. The figure stopped. Humans do not know how to wield justice, he said. I merely perfected it. No. Sarah cried. Real justice gives a chance to atone. Not only death. Wind screamed through broken windows. His cloak rose like the wings of a night bird. For an endless moment he stared at her. Then he turned. Do what you believe is right, he said. I no longer belong to this world. And he faded, like mist in sunlight. Briggs survived, barely. He confessed everything to state authorities. The buried files saw daylight. Ridgewell drowned in chaos for a while, but it was the chaos needed for truth to surface. Sarah wrote the biggest investigative series of her life. But she never wrote about the black figure in the snow. Because no one would believe her. And maybe they shouldn't. Sometimes, on the deepest winter nights when the wind howls across the prairie, Sarah still sees him far off in the distance, a reminder that justice never sleeps. He was not a hero. Not a demon. He was only the final payment for sins long buried. Ridgewell lived in darkness for decades. Only when the darkness stepped out on its own could light finally break through. But I still wonder. How many other Ridgewells are there in America? And how many executioners still walk the snowy nights?